So Vice President JD Vance, JD Yawgmoth's Bargain Vance. That's what I'm gonna call him from now on. I'm gonna call him Yawgmoth's Bargain. Interview with Face the Nation. All right, let's check it out.
Pete Hegseth, it was a tie. Bipartisan opposition, smallest margin since the job was created.
The magic card. Yeah, there was so the info behind that chaos was that there was a hit piece article written about JD Vance and how JD Vance said that his favorite card was Yawgmoth's Bargain, and they tried to read too deep into it. They were I have a YouTube video about it, but they tried to read too deep into it and try to psychoanalyze JD Vance based on his favorite magic cards because he played Magic.
If the nominee can't unite your party, how's he going to lead 3 million people?
Well, look, I think Pete is a disruptor, and a lot of people don't like that disruption. But Margaret, that disruption is incredibly necessary. If you think about all of those bipartisan massive votes, we have to ask ourselves, what did they get us? They got us a country where we fought many wars over the last 40 years, but haven't won a war about as long as I've been alive. They've got us a military with a major recruitment crisis, a procurement price crisis that's totally dysfunctional, where we buy airplanes for billions and billions of dollars, terrible cost over.
You know, I was thinking about this the other day about how shit has been pretty fucked up, like just with the government waste and like the quality of life getting like progressively worse as like years went on. Obviously technology makes things better, but just how happy people are has been just kind of on the downward slope. And it's like, we need something new to shake everything up and just like kind of, you know, bring us back to the good times, you know? And it's like, we're obviously not getting anywhere with, you know, and I'm not even just talking about Democrats, by the way, I'm also talking about Republicans. I think they're both an issue, both of them. And then that's why I'm so happy. Like everything's like, we're getting like people that are serious about actually making things better.
Runs, the delivery dates are always delayed. So we need a big change. Now, admittedly, there are people who don't like that big change, but it is necessary, and it's explicitly what Donald J. Trump ran on, and I think part of the reason why the American people elected him their 47th president.
So the main objective is changing all of that? That it's going to be Pete Hegseth alone?
I'd say the main problem the main thing that we want Pete Hegseth.
I'm not gonna lie, kind of like a lot of people who thought that like nothing would happen, that like, oh yeah, Trump's gonna get in, it's gonna be slightly better, but you know, he's not actually gonna get like everything he said done. I was proven so fucking wrong. Like he went like full don't give a fucks mode, and it was great. It's great. Like the last like week has been amazing, honestly.
Hegseth to do is to fix the problems at the Department of Defense, and unfortunately there are many. We've gotten into way too many wars that we don't have a plan for winning. We've gotten into way too many misadventures that we shouldn't have got into in the very first place. And our procurement process, Margaret, is incredibly
It's
broken.
such a gift that he doesn't care, honestly.
Well, of
it's
course,
great.
they're policy decisions, but they're also logistical and implementation decisions. If you look at where we are with the rise of artificial intelligence.
That's what I was saying, Jojo. Not getting elected in 2020 saved it. Yeah, I think it just basically gave him like, you know what, fuck it, we're going hardcore. I don't give a shit about any of these politicians anymore. It's great.
Rise of drone technology and drone warfare. We have to really, top to bottom, change the way that we fund the procurement of weapons, the way that we arm our troops. This is a major period of disruption, and we think Pete Hegseth is the guy to lead the job. Now, there's another element to this, Margaret, too, which is we believe that military morale, at least until the election of President Trump, was historically low. You had the Army missing recruitment goals by tens of thousands of soldiers, and already recruitment is starting to pick up because Pete Hegseth is fundamentally a warfighter's leader at the Department of Defense. He is a guy who sees not through the perspective of the generals or the bureaucrats. He looks at things through the perspective of the men and women that we send off to fight in our wars.
That's good.
Wall Street Journal.
You know, on that topic, I actually changed my mind. You know, for all the people that say I never change my mind about stuff, I changed my mind actually on the Ukraine thing recently. I had some time to think about it. And I think originally I was kind of in the camp of like, well, there are geopolitical enemies. So it's kind of like, if we can throw some resources to like give them a hard time, then it's a good thing. And then I thought about it. I'm like, that's a really toxic mindset. Like the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, what am I saying? I'm saying it's a good thing that like people are dying and killing each other because they're our enemies. Like it sounds awful. Actually, it's an awful thing to say. To say like well, fuck it, we're weakening Russia, so like, we could throw some money at like, making them kill each other. Like it's an awful thing to say. Like, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, what am I talking about? So I'm kind of, I think the more it goes on, the more I'm like, yeah, I'm for like Trump just ending it and just like finding a peace resolution. Like, even if there has to be like some concessions by like Ukraine and by Russia, like a mutual agreement, I think we should try to reach for peace. Because the idea that we should weaken our geopolitical enemy through the blood of like another country, it sounds awful.
And the National Review, conservative publications, as you know, have been critical of Tulsi Gabbard. The Review called her an atrocious nominee who deserves to be defeated. They compared her defense of Edward Snowden, the fugitive who stole U.S. secrets, to an attorney general who thinks the mob gets a bad rap. Her refusal to accept U.S. intelligence findings that Assad gassed his own people, they said, was like a nominee for OMB director not being able to count. Does any of this give you pause, putting her in charge of the U.S. intelligence community? Yes or no?
No, Margaret, look, these are publications that attacked Donald J. Trump obsessively, but those publications don't determine who the president is, the
And
American
ultimately
people
supported
do.
him.
And Donald J. Trump is the person who determines who his cabinet is, not these publications that I think, frankly, have lost relevance.
The Senate will
Tulsi
ultimately
Gabbard's,
decide.
Well, the Senate will provide advice and consent, as is its constitutional obligation, but I feel confident that Tulsi Gabbard will ultimately get through. Two things that are important to know about Tulsi. First of all, she is a career military servant.
She's got like that rogue hair, like the X-Men.
Had a
Her
classification
hair looks so
at the
cool.
highest levels for nearly
On like a
2
Chuni
decades.
level, it looks
She
great.
has impeccable character, impeccable record of service, and she also is a person who I think is going to bring some trust back to the intelligence services. The bureaucrats at our intelligence services have gotten completely out of control. They've been part of the weaponization of our political system, the weaponization of our justice system. We need to have good intelligence services who keep us safe, but part of that is restoring trust in those services, and we think Tulsi is the right person to do it.
Nerd.
That's
She
why the
doesn't trust
president.
Yo,
First
thank you,
article I
Shayo.
checked
Thank you for
out
the
about
bits.
Vance and Magic was especially saying he was ruthless and would pay any cost to win. How is that bad? Also,
Yeah, I mean,
he
it's a
stopped
card
playing
game,
when
of
he was
course.
15 so he could date.
Lame. Thanks, Rhina. Thank you so much for the sub. Thank you. Right, guys? Lame.
Intelligence services.
She recognizes that the bureaucrats have gotten out of control, and we need somebody there who's going to rein them in and return those services to their core mission of identifying information that's going to keep us safe.
You campaigned on lowering prices for consumers.
So, Dragon
We've seen
King.
all of these executive orders. Which one lowers prices?
We have done a lot, and there have been a number of executive orders that have caused already jobs to start coming back into our country, which is a core part of lowering prices. More capital investment, more job creation in our economy is one of the things that's going to drive down prices for all consumers, but also raise wages so that people can afford to buy the things that they need. If you look at our
grocery prices
slate
aren't gonna come
of
down.
executive orders, no, Margaret, prices are going to come down, but it's going to take a little bit of time, right? The president has been president for all of 5 days. I think that in those 5 days, he's accomplished more than Joe Biden did in 4 years. It's been an
That's
incredible
true.
breakneck pace of activity.
I heard someone say, I heard someone say that, like, if you took the last week and you basically were like, that's his entire presidency, you'd be like, damn, he did a lot, right? Like, if only this 1 week, if he did in this 1 week what in an entire like 4 years, you would have been like, wow, what a good presidency, right? It's like,
We're going to work with Congress.
It's only
We're,
been
of
1
course,
week.
Going to have more executive orders.
crazy.
And we're going to try. The way you lower prices is that you encourage more capital investment into our country. And you ask specifically, what executive order is going to help lower prices? All of the stuff that we've done on energy, to explore more energy reserves, to develop more energy resources in the United States of America. One of the main drivers of increased prices under the Biden administration is that we had a massive increase in the energy prices. Donald Trump has already taken multiple executive actions that are going to lower energy prices, and I do believe that means consumers are going to see lower prices at the pump and at the grocery store, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Rome was
lower energy prices has a ripple effect. It basically boosts everything, and that's because energy prices are like used for logistical thing, like logistical. It's used for logistics basically. So that's gonna make literally everything else the price go down.
Isn't built in a day.
Yeah.
And while we've done a whole lot, we can't undo all of the damage of Joe Biden's presidency
Well, there are a
in
lot
4
of things
days.
that contributed to higher energy prices, and there was record oil and gas
Yes,
production.
Joe Biden did
But the price
many,
of
many
eggs,
terrible
the
things
that
to
people
lead to an
see-
increase in prices. I agree, Margaret.
No, but all the things you experience at the grocery store are what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course, of course.
Those things, when do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Well, but Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by
Yup.
diesel fuel. If the diesel's way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive. How do we grow the bacon? Our farmers need energy to produce it. So if we lower energy prices, we are going to see lower prices for consumers.
Obviously.
And that is what we're trying to fight for.
Well, the flurry of executive orders, most of them weren't about the
Exactly,
economy.
Margaret.
Any of them.
Many of them were, though, Margaret. We had, I think we've
I
taken
love
over.
I love when they say their like first name. It's like it's so good. It's like whenever whenever they just straight up use like their first name, like it's so good.
Tariffs by February 1st.
We've taken over 200
Give him the oats, brother.
executive actions, some executive orders, other executive actions. Again, this is in less than a week, and a lot of them were focused on the economy, bringing investment into our country and lowering energy prices. We've also focused on safety, restoring public safety, ending weaponization of the Department of Justice. We've done a lot. And I think the president is to be commended for actually coming in and doing something with
Yep.
this incredible mandate the American people gave him. He's not sitting in the
It's crazy how fast he did it. Right? You would think like there would be like a bunch of like, I don't know, like red tape and like you'd have to like kind of set things in motion. He came out and he was just like, fuck it. Like we're just doing it. I don't care what anyone says. It's been great.
Oval Office doing nothing. He's doing the American people's business, and I think they're going to see a lot of good effects from it.
Well, a lot of these announcements have yet to take effect.
Sure.
The president did say he wants to do something with an executive order in relation to federal emergency response. He said he may reform or
my
eliminate
favorite.
FEMA.
As a
Instead
trucker,
of sending
I
emergency
pay over
responders, he may
$500 a day on fuel if I'm driving
That's
every day.
crazy, Shago.
Shit's
Thank you for the bits, man.
expensive. Now imagine the big trucking companies with thousands of trucks. Yeah, that's a ton of money on fuel alone. If that got cut in half, that would drive prices down a lot.
Oh yeah, it would. And again, like fuel affects everything. It affects like electricity generation, right? So like the power to like things that need to be produced. It lowers the prices. It lowers the prices for everything. The energy that we need to produce stuff, the energy we need to move things around. Like again, it's a logistical resource. So it's like obviously it would affect literally everything.
to send a percentage of money to states to take care of themselves. But, you know, FEMA has specialized expertise that some of these states just don't have.
Oh,
And
Margaret,
in their
I-
arsenal.
Oh yeah.
and-
Wait, they have more specialized expertise than the people who are like actually affected by these shits all the fucking time. Like, okay, yeah, sure.
I wish
How
that they.
will states who are
Sure, man.
who are lower income states, the Mississippis, the Kentuckys, the Alabamas, be able to do this for themselves without federal help?
Well, the president, to be clear, is not saying
She basically said that dude, the Alabama is too fucking stupid to take care of themselves.
we're going to leave anybody behind. He's saying that.
Dude, fucking shots fired at fucking Alabama and Kentucky, dude.
And the
Holy shit.
way that we administer these resources, some of which is coming from the federal level, some of which is coming from the state level, we've got to get the bureaucrats out of the way and get the aid to the people who need it most.
But these
Let's
are the
be
first
honest, Margaret,
responders.
you talk about the expertise from FEMA. FEMA in North Carolina, in California, in Florida with some of the hurricanes has often been a disaster. And it's not because we don't have good people at FEMA, it's because bureaucratic red tape and garbage prevents the rapid deployment of resources
But
to the
the
people who need
states
it
are-
most.
The local people have more of an interest in the actual aid going to the local people. Obviously, that's the problem again with like the feds is they're so disconnected from like all of the places that they have to help. If you fix things on a local level, local people understand local needs more than people. Than federal people.
Now going to have to do this themselves?
The president is trying to encourage us to reform the way that we deliver emergency response in a way that gets resources
So
to
don't
people
take
who
him
need
literally.
it.
is what you're saying.
We should take the president at his word that FEMA needs desperate reform, because it does. Margaret, when I went to North Carolina as VP before we were sworn in, people would talk about how FEMA would get resources, food, medicine, water, to a warehouse, but then would have no plan to get it from the warehouse to the people in the mountains who were literally starving and thirsting to death. We can do so much better, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we will.
But they work with the state and local officials.
They often don't work well enough. And again, that's not because of
the state and local officials?
No, the FEMA management officials don't work well enough with the state and local officials to get resources to the people who need it. We should expect, and this is, I think, one of the fundamental premises of President Trump's leadership, the American people should expect more of their government. When there's a terrible disaster, they should expect food, medicine, and water to get to the people who need it. When there's a terrible fire in California, the fire hydrants ought to actually turn on. I am sick of the American.
What do we fucking pay them for? Like, it's been too long that we pay the government. What do you think the taxes are? We're paying the government for them to take care of the shit, and they don't do it. It's always excuses. You just don't have the resources. It's always excuses, always bullshit. And they never get it done. We give them more money. Again, California gave them even more money. They take care of homeless people. Have they fixed it? It's gotten worse. So what are we even talking about here? Obviously, there's a problem.
American people having such low expectations for their government. They should demand more of us, because this is the greatest country in the world, and that's what Donald Trump's leadership promises to bring back.
So still count on the federal government, but watch that space. Let me ask you about another area that you campaigned on quite a lot, and there was a flurry of activity on, and that has to do with immigration.
Sure.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops this week condemned some of the executive orders signed by President Trump, specifically those allowing immigration and customs enforcement to enter churches and to enter schools. Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
The idea that, like, we should just let them, like, hide in we should just not enforce the law because they're hiding in the church or hiding in the school, it doesn't make any sense. It's the same kind of logic that, like, oh, if terrorists hide behind children, then, you know, we should just not do anything about it. It's idiotic logic.
School?
Well, let me
Why
address
solve the
this.
problem
Of course, if
when
you
it
have
makes
a
you
person
money?
who is convicted of a violent crime, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, you have to go and get that person to protect the public safety. That's not unique to immigration. But let me just address this particular issue, Margaret, because as a practicing Catholic...
Yeah, we shouldn't bring guns to a school because there's a school shooter. We wouldn't want, like, the guns that we bring. We don't want the cops to go there and scare everybody, especially if the cops, you know, they don't look like the kids, you know. Like, you have to make sure that all the cops look like, you know, like all of the kids. Otherwise, it's going to look, you know, they're going to feel uncomfortable.
I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried
Teachers
about
need to learn
humanitarian
self-defense.
concerns?
I don't know if teachers should be forced to do it, but I mean, I feel like we should have officers for that. We should have people specially trained to take care of that kind of stuff. But if a teacher does want to take it into their own hands and, like, learn how to defend themselves for, like, these kind of cases, they can also defend the children. I think fuck it, let them, you know.
Or are they actually worried about their bottom line? We are going to enforce immigration law. We're going to protect the American people.
Yeah.
Donald Trump promised to do that, and I believe the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops...
Oh, when I mean self-defense, by the way, I just want to be clear, Fiera Nader. When I mean that teachers should be allowed to defend themselves, I mean with a gun, as long as they're responsible about it. And obviously, if they fuck up and they let a kid get a hold of their gun or something like that, then obviously, like, they should be held accountable for that.
They're worried about the humanitarian costs of immigration enforcement.
Hot take schools should be hard targets. I mean, that's how you solve the problem, right, Grim? I don't buy the idea that, like, oh, you know, guns are scary, so therefore we should just let our kids be more vulnerable. That doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It should be a hard target, yeah.
Talk about the children who
That's
have
how
been
you
sex
solve it.
trafficked because of the wide open border of Joe
So
Biden.
you personally support them going into
people like
schools?
Lady-
That's either how you either solve it through that or you solve it through a cultural means. But right now, culture is slow. Culture is slow. Reinforcing right now is fast. We could do that right now. it would cost a lot of money, obviously, but like, what price do you put on the future of America and like, our children? What price do you put on that? Obviously, it's going to be very expensive to do that, right? And we can talk about like how to do that efficiently, but the other way that you fix this is you change the culture. But how do you change the culture and mental health? It's a slow process. It's going to take a long time. What my concern is how do we make it so that the schools are safe? That's the bottom line.
And Riley,
Churches.
who were brutally murdered, I support us doing law enforcement against violent criminals, whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe. Let me ask this question,
But
Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of
So what's
course.
the
Of
point of the question?
course.
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority
Yes.
to go into churches and
Exactly.
go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to
What are you talking about, Margaret?
enforce
But
the
that
law
also
everywhere
has a
to protect
knock-on
Americans.
effect, a
Margaret.
chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling
in the
effect on
churches,
illegal
you think
immigrants
the
coming
U.S.
into our
Conference
country.
of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals from
I think the U.S.
Wait. So why? Now they're concerned. Now they're concerned what the church says. Yeah. Now you're concerned what like the religious institutions say. Now you care so much about it. Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, Margaret.
Conference of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout
What happened to
Catholic,
the separation of church and state that you always talk about, Margaret?
that they'll do better.
There are 5 legal challenges already to one of the other immigration actions, the order on birthright citizenship. A federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan, who I think you'd agree, has some conservative credentials,
Sure.
paused the order to end birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. How do you reconcile this challenge to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution?
So I obviously disagree with that judge, and these things, some of them will be litigated. That's the nature of our constitutional system. But here's the basic idea of President Trump's view on this. If you are a lawful permanent resident or a legal immigrant who plans to stay, your children, of course, should become American citizens. But
By the way, I thought about it some more, and I think that birthright citizenship is very obviously a loophole, especially when involving non-U.S. citizens. Like the subject to the jurisdiction as being subject to the laws because you're here doesn't make any sense. If you like actually think about it, it makes no sense at all. It's very obvious that what they mean by subject to the jurisdiction, as in like there's a part in it that basically there's a caveat in there that says that it doesn't apply to like diplomats, right? Because they have diplomatic immunity, right? So for instance, if something happened to those diplomats, it would be their countries taking care of them, right? In the same way that if you went to a different country and something happened with you, it would be like your country trying to negotiate with them because you're a citizen of that country. Like if me as an American, if I go to Japan and I do something, then it would, the United States would basically be working on my behalf to try to like figure out what's going on there, right? Because the United States is basically responsible for me as a citizen of the United States. And I think that's what they meant by subject to the jurisdiction.
let's say you're the child of an ambassador. You don't become...
But that's not part of it.
Well, that
There's
is
already a carve-out
an
having to deal
important
with kids of
principle.
diplomats.
But we're saying that carve-out should apply to anybody who doesn't plan to stay here. If you come here on vacation...
And even then, though, that's not even what we're talking about for the most part when it comes to kicking out illegal immigrants. It's not even like this. It's not even like a part of that argument. It's a whole different thing. Yeah.
And you have a baby in an American hospital, that baby doesn't become an American citizen. If you're an illegal alien and you come here temporarily, hopefully, your child does not become an American citizen by virtue of just having been born on American soil.
The problem is they left it worded vaguely enough for abuse. I don't think that's true. Crimnox, and I can give you a good example of that in that the Second Amendment is really fucking clear. The Second Amendment is incredibly clear, and yet they still try to go against it. So I don't think it really matters. I think they would do it anyway. They would try to make up some shit anyway.
Is a very basic principle in American immigration law that if you want to become an American citizen and you've done it the right way, And the American people in their collective wisdom.
I don't think they really care about the Constitution. I'm gonna be real. I don't think that far leftists care about the Constitution at all. They only care about it when it
It's
helps
funny
them.
how Americans are expected to
Welcomed
respect
you
other
into our
cultures,
national
but when you're a
community,
foreigner
then-
illegally coming into America, they throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, bro, shut up, you're in America breaking our laws. Time to swallow your own medicine.
Yeah, basically.
American people in their collective wisdom have welcomed you into our national community, then you become a citizen. But temporary residents, people who come in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children shouldn't become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country
This is a
founded
unique
by,
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was
So like
founded
Margaret
by
looks
some
like. That's what she looks like. Look at her.
This is a
founded
unique
by-
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. No country says that temporary visitors.
I'm telling you guys, I was on the fence about Vance. I was like, man, I don't know, man. This guy, but now, good choice. Good
Children
choice.
will be given complete access to the benefits and blessings of American citizenship. America should actually look out for the interests of our citizens first. And that means, again, if you're here permanently and lawfully, your kid becomes an American citizen. If you're not here permanently, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and don't plan to be, why would we make those people's children American citizens permanently?
I want to ask you about refugee admissions, which were just suspended by the president.
It makes no fucking sense at all. It's like it makes no sense.
Nothing to do with the U.S. border. Refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months to go through. They are heavily vetted. Left literally at the airport this week were thousands of Afghans, some of whom had worked with the United States government and were promised to come here. When you talked to us in August, you said airport months to go through this border. Refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months to go through. They are heavily vetted. Left literally at the airport this week were thousands of Afghans.
Yeah, you mean the ones that were our allies, the ones that helped us out like really, really hard, and then we just fucking left them there? You mean those ones? You mean the ones that they basically went against? Like they went against was it the Taliban? They went against. Is that? I don't know if I'm getting that right, but they went against basically. They helped the United States, and straight up were working with the United States like publicly under our protection, and then we just fucking left them there. You mean those people? Who's the one that did that? Who's the one that fucking left them there? Who fucking rug pulled them?
Some of whom had worked with the United States government and were promised to come here. When you talked to us in August, you said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly
Yeah, they're
vetted
probably all fucking dead now.
and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during...
Did I tell you guys I actually did some tactical classes with one of those guys. He had like a book written about him. I think it was it Johnny Walker? Codename Johnny Walker, I found it. That's the book. Codename Johnny Walker. This dude. That's the dude. That's the dude. I met him. I met him and I did some tactical training with him. They fucking cheated, by the way, those guys. They fucking cheated. Like when we did some stuff with them, they were like teaching us stuff and they were like shooting like around corners and shit. We're like, what the fuck, bro? And they're like, yeah, man, that's war, man. You don't think we wouldn't blind fire? I'm like, okay.
campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
No, but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline.
Is he still? I don't know, but like no, I met him in the United States. And I took a tactics train. Me and my mom took a tactics training thing with him.
Afghan
and like his squad.
refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand by
concern
it?
as the Vice President, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that
So
we
no.
know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these
It was not in Iraq. It was in the United States.
refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people.
I got to play capture the flag against them. We played capture the flag
You
against
know
the
they
Johnny
left the
Walker squad.
biometrics machines in the abandoned Bagram base and the Taliban got their hands on them and used them to ID the folk.
That's so fucked up, Agent Strike. Dude, that's fucked. Yeah, I got to play capture the flag against like Johnny Walker and his squad. That guy, this dude, and like his like all of these dudes basically, like the dudes that were with him. I don't know if there's pictures of them, but yeah, this dude. I think it was this dude. Yeah, this dude. And we got to play we got to play capture the flag against them, and they fucking cheated. They cheated hard.
into our country.
These
It's
people are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planted terrorist
And then we counter cheated by climbing a wall. We climbed the wall. They made a barricade and we climbed it. We climbed and we stole the flag from behind them because they weren't covering the actual flag. They were covering like a perimeter around the flag because they thought that like this one spot you couldn't get over it, but we climbed the wall.
attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly, he wasn't.
To be fair, it was like 20 versus 5.
I don't
to be
want
fair.
my children to share a neighborhood with
Thank you so
people
much for the follow, Agent Secret Agent Pickles. Thank you.
who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force
Were you guys
any
using sim rounds? We were using airsoft.
other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular
I
case.
think I was using a vector that day. Yeah, I was using a vector. That day I was using a vector.
It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living
I
here.
don't really
But,
care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
2 weeks ago, you were on Fox News and you said if you protested peacefully on January 6th and had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you
Actually, it
like
might have been a P90. Was it a P90 or a vector I was using that day? Maybe P90. I don't remember. It might have been a vector. I don't know. Thank you for the Prime Nova. Thank you so much. Thank you.
gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. Did you counsel the president against these blanket pardons for?
Did he say I don't really care?
Because I think people
Did I miss that while I was talking?
people into our country,
These
it's
people are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly, he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
That dude, that's amazing. Like half the time, a lot of these people, they don't give a fuck because it doesn't affect them. So the idea that like Vance is like, I wouldn't want my kids to be subject to that, so I'm not letting anyone else be subject to that. That's great.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree.
I don't care, Margaret.
2 weeks ago, you were
Shut
on
up,
Fox
Margaret.
News and you said if you protested peacefully on January 6th and had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. Did you counsel the president against these blanket pardons for 1,500 people,
Well, Margaret, I noticed
including those who committed violence?
I
Margaret,
noticed that you cut
calm down,
off
Margaret.
the thing that I said immediately after that. The full quote is that, of course, there are gray areas. And here's the nature of the gray area. Merrick Garland's Department of Justice denied constitutional protections in the prosecutions. There were double standards in how sentences were applied to the jail.
Didn't like a lot of the, I don't know if this is true. This is what my mom told me, that a lot of the people that were in jail didn't even get tried. Like they're just fucking stuck in jail and they didn't even have a trial. Is it true? That's giga fucked if that's true.
Protesters versus other groups. What
Fucked
the president
up.
said consistently on the campaign
Case
is
by
that he
case
was going to
basis.
look at a case-by-case basis.
This is-
Consistently on the campaign
Case
is
by
that he
case
was going to
basis.
look at a case-by-case basis.
This is blanket.
And that's exactly what we did. We looked at 1,600 cases, and the thing that came out of it, Margaret, is that there was a massive denial of due process of liberty, and a lot of people were denied their constitutional rights. The president believes that. I believe that, and I think he made the right decision.
Daniel Rodriguez used an electroshock weapon against a policeman who was dragged out of the defensive line by plunging it into the officer's neck. He was imprisoned, sentenced to 12 years, 7 months. He got a pardon. Ronald Maccabee.
Wait, what?
He was
I believe that, and I think he made the right decision.
Daniel Rodriguez used an electroshock weapon against a policeman who was dragged out of the defensive line by plunging it into the officer's neck. He was imprisoned, sentenced to 12 years, 7 months. He got a pardon. Ronald Maccabee hit a cop while wearing reinforced brass knuckle gloves, and he held one down on the ground as other rioters assailed the officer for over 20 seconds, causing a concussion.
I'm a huge fan of the movie Hunger Games, and sometimes I think we're living the prequel of those movies. It's kind of scary.
I was really into that too before. Thank you for the bits, Renzets. Thank you.
Law enforcement. How can you call these people unjustly imprisoned?
Margaret, you're separating, there's an important issue here. There's what the people actually did on January the 6th, and we're not saying that everybody did everything perfectly. And then what did Merrick Garland's Department of Justice do in unjustly prosecuting well over 1,000 Americans in a way that was politically
Is
motivated?
violence like that against a police officer ever justified?
Violence against a police officer is not justified, but that doesn't mean that you should have Merrick Garland's weaponized Department of Justice expose you to incredibly unfair process, to denial of constitutional rights, and frankly, to a double standard that was not applied to many people, including, of course, the Black Lives Matter rioters who killed over 24 people and never had the weight of a weaponized Department of Justice come against them. The pardon power is not just for people who are angels or people who are perfect. And of course, we love our law enforcement and want people to be peaceful with everybody, but especially with our good cops. That's a separate issue from what Merrick Garland's Department of Justice did. We rectified a wrong, and I stand by it.
I'm being told we're out of time, but I want to quickly ask you, the
Please.
richest men in the world were at that Capitol on Inauguration Day. Heads of Amazon, Google, Mark Zuckerberg.
Look at Zuckerberg. He looks like he's like, I don't want to be here, man.
Zuckerberg of Facebook. In August, you told us Google and Facebook are too big. We ought to take the Teddy Roosevelt
It's too dry in here for my lizard skin.
approach. Break them up. Don't let them control what people are allowed to say. They've now donated to the Trump inauguration. Are you still going to break up big tech?
So, you know who else was at the inauguration was my mom, and a lot of people who just supported the president and fought every single day to get his election. And
They
to make
gave
it,
$1 million
and to make it possible.
each to the inauguration.
Well, there were a lot of people who didn't give $1 million to the inauguration.
They got pretty good
who
seating.
who were on that stage, Margaret. They didn't have as good a seating as my mom and a lot of other people who were there to support us. But look, we believe fundamentally
That's like such a weird thing to get caught up on.
that big tech does have too much power, and there are two ways they can go about this. They can
Dude, acting like big tech is like the big buddies of like has always been the biggest buddies of Trump is freaking ridiculous. Like
either
they're living in a
respect
different reality.
Americans' constitutional
Yeah,
rights,
calm down,
they
Margaret.
can
Calm
stop
down.
engaging in censorship, and if they don't, you can be absolutely sure that Donald Trump's leadership is not going to look too kindly on them.
So they're still on notice.
They're very much on notice.
Damn. They did everything that they could to drag him. That was pretty good. It's like I said, I was kind of on the fence about JD Vance originally when Trump picked him, but now I see it was actually the perfect pick. Is the perfect compliment. Also, like JD Vance is like pretty young, so like he has like a good career ahead of him. Like, you know, a lot of possibilities like for him in the future. It's gonna be like a long time, and you know, with Trump like kind of teaching him and like them working together, like it gives me a lot of hope that my worry with the whole thing is that when Trump is out, that it's over. That like Trump was like a once in a century thing, and like it all leaves when Trump leaves, and I'm glad seeing that like JD Vance could potentially, like, he has the same kind of priorities, and I feel like he can really carry the torch later. That's my hope, at least. I don't know how true that is, but it seems like it based on what I'm seeing.